What is up? Welcome to another Sleuth Intuition Live. Sleuth Intuition YouTube channel mainly focuses on um, finding insight and helping with the Delphi case, bringing attention. And if we can find some clues, even better. Just like one of the cases I'm going to talk about today. What's funny is it's actually at a Kokomo. They solved the case with help from internet sleuths. So when I say help, what I mean is that internet sleuths solved the case and the FBI completely took all of the credit for it. So that's going to be interesting. We'll save that one for last. There's a lot of interesting subtleties about that one. But first, let's kind of explain what tonight's live is really about. So I got the idea in my head. Okay. I believe that the killer is young, of Abby and Libby. I believe the person who killed them is a young person. So my age range, I don't know what you guys voted, but was 14, I believe 14 to 25, I think is some age. I believe it was somebody that they do know. So that's why I then got the thought, well, if he's young, there's no DNA. That may be why they don't have a match. This could be the first time he's ever attacked anybody or killed. So maybe he was testing the waters a little bit with animals, animal cruelty. Maybe a friend or family member noticed that this guy is always hurting animals, without a conscience, just indiscriminately, So we're going to talk a little bit about famous serial killers who started their careers, careers. I don't know if it seems kind of weird to say that word, but it's really what it is. Oh, what's up, Callie? Thank you. Appreciate that. What's up, Donald? So yeah, we're going to look at people like the Zodiac. There's a real short interview where friends talk about his indiscriminate killing of animals. We're going to talk about the FBI's progression when it comes to tracking animal cruelty cases. So it all ties in. So it should be a pretty good show. But also, I'm going to continue looking for cases in Indiana, near Carroll County. I would say anywhere between 2014 and 2017. Because some of the cases we're going to look at today, they're not solved. There's actually like serial animal killers that are still out there. And they're still committing crimes, and law enforcement, especially the FBI, is extremely nervous about the fact that they believe they're going to go and kill people. And for some reason, they believe small children, because most of the animals that were hurt were puppies and young animals, I'm assuming. What's up, everybody? 18 to 40. That comes straight from the FBI. And I could see that. There's some people that still look young at 40. You don't really start to change your appearance until, like, some people, depending on if you're a drinker or a smoker or whatever, 18 to 40 would be the smart choice. It'd be better odds. What's up, Frank? What's up, TLH? Polygraph. Can you guys hear my mic? I adjusted a little bit. I went back and watched one of my last videos, and it sounded really, like, I don't know, it sounded really loud and just didn't sound good. What's up, Tax Cat? All right, looks like the room has filled up. Let's go ahead and get started. I found this one off of Court TV, and she has a really interesting guest, a psychiatrist, an author, and she's going to kind of give us the information that we're looking for and see if we can find some insight into the killer of Abby and Libby. So we're kind of trying to train ourselves. We're trying to listen to these professionals, and we're trying to build an amateur profile if we can, not by myself, but, together if we can, or at least try to, and at least talk about it at the least.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Good Friday afternoon. I'm Ashley Wilcott. Thank you for joining us. Is there a serial killer in small-town Kansas? And is animal cruelty really a gateway crime? Police in Parsons, Kansas are investigating the cruel death of a third dog in less than 1 year in that small community. And a fourth dog was shot and harmed, but it did survive. This is a case that really hit home for the police in Parsons because a 3-month-old German Shepherd, there on your screen, owned by a local police officer, was found decapitated in his own backyard. That adorable little puppy there was named Ranger. Now, the good news is...
Yeah, poor Ranger. Well, they're going to try to tie, I think, about 3 different cases together in a small little community. But this one being owned by a police officer, I wonder if that's maybe some revenge, but I'm not sure. Let's see what they have to say here.
If there is any, a reward for Ranger's killer has passed $34,000.
Thanks,
the
Curly.
Police chief said it is really a shocking development that the $30,000 offered has not loosened any tongues. That is what leads us to believe that it is one person acting alone. Talk about a disturbing case. Joining us now to help discuss this, forensic psychiatrist Carol Lieberman. Carol, thank you.
Guys about. She says that with this huge reward that they have, if somebody had any information or helped commit the crime, they're going to try to get that reward because it was, I think, what they say, 30,000. So with the Delphi case, you have this reward. It's over $300,000. It's almost like if anybody knew anything or if somebody helped or anything along those lines, they would have already come forward. So they're saying because nobody's come forward, they believe that the person acted alone. So what do you guys think about that in regards to Delphi?
So much for coming on with us. Obviously a very disturbing set of facts. Let's start right out of the gate. What does it say to you when you now have four dogs that have been injured, 3 of those killed, 1 of those decapitated in 1 year's time?
Yes, it's a very foreboding statistic. What's particularly, it's not only that this is a horrible crime in itself, and, they're talking about calling it a hate crime and so on, cruelty to animals, all of that. But the worst part of it is that torturing animals, and one of the dogs at least was tortured, and certainly killing animals, that is one of the signs in the triad, the sociopathic or psychopathic triad, of someone who is going to grow up to be or is already a sociopath or a psychopath. So the triad is bedwetting beyond the age of 12, arson, setting fires. It could just be, playing
Arson, like the Flora fire. That's interesting.
With matches and setting fires on paper, or more serious, and the animals. So they need to catch this person, not only because, of course, it's horrible that all these puppies are being destroyed, but because this is someone who's going to be going on to more serious crimes.
When you say more serious crimes, in your opinion, could that be people? Could this be a serial killer in the making?
Yes, absolutely. And in particular, the first dog belonged to a female police officer, and she had her police car parked in the driveway, so they knew that it was, and her dog was in the yard. And they took the dog away, shot the dog, decapitated it, and brought it back. And she discovered it a couple of hours later. And so the police thought that, and in fact, it seems likely that it was a targeted attack, another way of getting and being violent towards police officers.
So let's look together. I think that we have the information about each of the four dogs. You've alluded to two of the causes of death, but I want to talk about all four of them found. Draco was the one found that you mentioned. He was wrapped in a blanket on December 29th, 2021. A child found that dog wrapped by a bridge. The dog had been beaten to death, also strangulation. Ranger is the one that we just showed the picture of, found decapitated. That was the one you just alluded to, the pet.
And right there, they say a child found it. I wonder what they mean by child. Do they mean like a teenager? Because why would a child be walking around alone underneath a bridge area? You know what I mean? To find this dog that was dumped. Why would a small child, be in a dumping area? So what if this teenager is somehow possibly involved? What if this is him going around doing all this weird stuff?
Strangulation. Ranger is the one that we just showed the picture of, found decapitated. That was the one you just alluded to, the pet Carol of the police officer. Blue is shot to death, and then the other fourth was Zeus, and that animal was shot, that dog, but did survive. I want to go backwards a little bit because you said torturing, killing of animals can be indicative of a sociopath or a psychopath. And growing up, when we would joke, would be like, oh, you're such a psychopath. Well, obviously, that is not the meaning of the word. What do those two words mean to the rest of us lay people who aren't in your field?
Well, it's someone who is sadistic, who is often charming. That's why, for example, serial killers who seduce in a way, get people to come with them, and then they kill them in another location.
Okay, guys, did you hear what she just said? Let's listen to what she said very carefully. What she's talking about is these people that are out here hurting animals and who become serial killers are extremely charming. They're very convincing. They can pull at your heartstrings, I guess. So let's listen to what she said one more time.
Often charming. That's why, for
people who aren't in your field.
Well, it's someone who is sadistic, who is often charming. That's why, for example, serial killers who seduce in a way, get people to come with them, and then they kill them in another location.
So she said convince them to go with them to another location. Okay, so we know there was no screams, from what we understand, coming from that side of the bridge or from where the crime scene ended up. Well, in regards to the Delphi case. We hear a lot about the arguing couple. Is it possible that the arguing couple was the girls along with the bridge guy? Were they with boys maybe and separated for privacy? 14, that's when you start kissing girls and stuff like that. So maybe these guys, very charming, convinced them to come with them, come along, and then maybe tried to force them, and it's hard to say whether there was two or one. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It seems like two girls, two attackers. But, one day we'll know, and hopefully very soon.
They're very charming. That's one of their characteristics, and but cold-blooded. Totally sadistic. Totally, they could cut off the head of a puppy, for example. Um, and it starts young. These signs that I was just mentioning, this triad, starts in childhood, and we saw that. We saw that with Ethan Crumbley. We saw that with Cruz. From the school shooter in Florida. The parents, of course, often miss these signs and don't put them together and don't get help. Or if they do get help, this is another problem with serial killers, that even those who are brought to a mental health clinic or hospitalized even, if they fall between the cracks, which often is what happens, then they go on and aren't medicated and aren't hospitalized. And like Cruz, for example, should have been hospitalized against his will. Ethan, of course.
Yeah, that's interesting. Bridge Burner, do you have any more information on that? It's kind of strange. We're talking about arson. Do they know if it was an accidental fire or do they suspect arson? I mean, that's very strange. Yeah, what was the triad? I can't remember what
Often
the third one was.
charming. That's why, for example,
Animal was shot, that dog, but did survive. I want to go backward. Growing up, when we would joke, we'd be like, oh, you're such a psychopath. Well, obviously, that is not the meaning of the word. What do those two words mean to the rest of us lay people who aren't in your field?
Well, it's someone who is sadistic, who is often charming. That's why, for example, serial killers who, seduce in a way, get people to come with them, and then they kill them in another location. They're very charming. That's one of their characteristics. And but cold-blooded, totally sadistic. Totally, they could cut off the head of a puppy, for example. And it starts young. These signs that I was just mentioning, this triad, starts in childhood. And we saw that, with Ethan Crumbley. We saw that with Cruz, from the school shooter in Florida. The parents, of course, often miss these signs and don't put them together and don't get help. Or if they do get help, this is another problem with serial killers, that even those who are brought to a mental health clinic or hospitalized even, if they fall between the cracks, which often is what happens, then they go on and aren't medicated and aren't hospitalized. And like Cruz, for example, should have been hospitalized against his will. Ethan, of course, Ethan Crumbley should have been given psychiatric treatment early on. His parent. This is the kind of family that grows a psychopath or a sociopath, a serial killer. I mean.
So that's something we're going to look at next. Interesting parents create interesting children. You know what I mean? Kind of like the whole, like the Kleins. It's something that's passed down.
Ethan, in a way, was a serial killer, although they were all just in that one day in that one school.
I could talk to you for such a long time about all of this, Carol, but let me break it down to a few, I think, really important things that you just said. The first is, this is a town of 10,000 residents, according to the U.S. Census. And when you describe so articulately and so easy to understand that it's someone who's charming, cold-blooded, starts young, and these animals are disappearing from the same geographical area, it feels to me like it shouldn't be too difficult to identify potential suspects. Would you agree or disagree with that premise?
Well, I know. You think of a Kansas town like that, everybody's...
Yeah, listen to this, guys. Here, her question was very important. So let's listen to what she says here, and we're going to compare it to Delphi.
Too difficult to identify potential suspects. Would you agree or disagree with that premise?
Well, I know. You think of a Kansas town like that, everybody's like Mayberry, right?
Like Mayberry.
You should be able to notice if there is one person who is not a Mayberry type person. But, they are often loners. They often either they don't have a job or they work in a like a laborer type job, jobs where
Okay, keep in mind she could be telling us who we're looking for here. Let's pay close attention.
notice if there is one person who is not a Mayberry type person. But they are often loners. They often either they don't have a job or they work in a like a laborer type job, jobs where they're not really interacting with people very much. I just hope, that they are looking, I mean, obviously it seems like they're looking very hard, but I hope that they redouble their efforts because, as I said, I think, particularly the example of the policewoman, if that really was targeting her because she was a policewoman, they could, after the dog could be a child.
And let's talk about the FBI.
See, they're terrified of that. When law enforcement and the FBI, now that they're tracking animal cruelty cases, they know what it means. They know it's an early sign of the crimes that they've been covering. Because once they catch these serial killers and they talk with them, they say, well, when did this all start? A lot of times they're going to say, oh, well, it started with me killing small animals or pets, pets around the neighborhood and doing strange things, with their bones and stuff, just like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Has also said that animal cruelty is a gateway crime, and we have information about what they had to say. Specifically, it is a predictor of current and future violence, including crimes of assault, rape, murder, arson, domestic violence, and sexual abuse of children. And again, that comes from the FBI. It echoes what you're saying. Let's talk a little bit more now about Ethan Crumbley that you mentioned, because one of the things that we know, according to the reports, is that he took a mason jar with a severed bird's head and liquid in it and set it in the boys' bathroom on a toilet paper dispenser in a boys' bathroom at the school. That severed head, should that have been a signal, a sign, a red flag?
Yes, that and so many others.
See, that's the behavior that I'm on the search for. Anything, in that general area, Carroll County, even the surrounding counties, stuff like what this guy did. I guess he put a bird's head in some type of liquid, put it in a jar, and put it on display in a school bathroom. So I'm kind of on a search for stuff like that right now.
Should that have been a signal, a sign, a red flag?
Yes, that and so many others. Ethan has been crying out for help for quite some time. And people, his parents have ignored him. They bought him a gun. They literally put the gun in his hands. The school ignored him. They called in his parents, but then they didn't look in his backpack, and they sent him back to class just because see, that was one of the things that the school is being sued, and of course his parents are in jail. But that was one of the things that the school did wrong, that when the parents didn't take him home, which of course was outrageous, but when they didn't take him home, the school should not have sent him back to class. They should have called 911, had the police come and bring him to a psychiatric emergency room. I mean, he was doing everything.
Nope, Ted Bundy did. If you read his biography, Ted Bundy started out hurting animals. Yeah, and eventually the whole porn stuff and the escalation with him needing to, take it further and further. But yeah, as a child, he killed animals and tortured animals.
But having a plane skywrite in the sky, I am going to shoot up the school, or I am going to kill somebody.
And worst case scenario in Parsons, Kansas, if this person is not caught, they could become one of these predictors of a serial killer. So it is so important. Carol Lieberman, I know that you are a best-selling author, a psychiatrist. I can't thank you enough for joining us today with your great information. To all of you viewers, if anyone has any further information, please contact the Parsons Police Department. The number is 620-421-7060, or there's a tip line, 620-421-7057. You can also send an email to tips@parsons Occasionspd.com. Please, anything that you can do in that regard.
Man, that's horrible. So they're tracking basically a serial dog killer, almost as if they're tracking a serial killer in training, is what it seems like. Yep, Frank, that's true. What was it, neglect or something like that? Yep, that's right, Anne. You have two major cities, and Delphi's right in the center of them. So if you're in one city and work in the other, every day you pass right by Delphi. You know? And the bridge. Pass right by it. Yeah, I was reading part of it this morning. That's why I put his face on here, because I was reading the chapters where they talk about him torturing animals. No, I'm still looking into that guy. But it's not really the guy it is. It's more somebody like that guy. It's more the theory. It's my basically, I guess you could call it the mean teen Valentine's Day theory. You know, um, maybe that's why the girls went with this person, and maybe that's why nobody's seen him. Somebody who lives pretty close, knows the trails, and can access Ron's property undetected on maybe an ATV or a quad. So yeah, it was a very complex theory. Your backyard would basically have to be connected to the trails, which a lot of those houses are out there. So you could just take your quad right out of your backyard, follow the creek trails along the side of the creek, even cross the creek at some points, go set up, I don't know, a Valentine's display trying to woo somebody. Or maybe you're upset and you're going to go take revenge. Just something along those lines is what that theory was all about. Kind of like what Garrett Kurtz would talk about. He said, "Oh yeah, I made trails up and down there." He even talks about driving small cars back there and having to get out of the windows because they can't open the doors. So let's say Libby had a love interest. She recently broke up with that person over the Anthony Shots person. We know from Keegan Klein's transcript that she was smitten. She was convinced that this was a real person, and she may have severed ties with other, you know, boys that she was interested in, or so to speak. 14's an age where you start talking to boys and girls and all that puberty stuff. It's a really tough age. Probably the toughest part of my life. I know that much. Yeah, I got into a lot of trouble when I was 14. So if you have a troubled teen, get him in sports. Like right away. Sports is a lot like the military. It's good for you. So, I mean, it really changed my life. Yep. Yeah, it's a good theory. I was just talking to Fig about that theory. Somebody driving up, because you can drive a quad quietly. You just put it in a low gear, and you just kind of let it do its thing. Nobody will hear you. So maybe he pulled up underneath the bridge, scared the girls, at first. Who knows? The problem is that we assume what's on that audio. We assume that she said, "Oh, it's the creepy guy," or this. We don't know. We don't know any of that. Every time new information comes out, it proves that everybody was wrong. The podcasters, majority of the family members who came out and said, "Hey, well, and we like to believe that what they're saying is 100% because they're good sources. They're right there. But oftentimes we don't know the strategy of law enforcement. We don't know what information they're because sometimes they can allude to information or allude to certain things, kind of like the whole social media aspect, like, oh no, it had nothing to do with that, because they don't know. They're still investigating. If they go and tell the family like, hey, yeah, we're investigating the social media aspect or possibility, well, then the family's going to go and start talking, and there could be somebody very close by that was involved, maybe a friend of the family, a friend of a friend of the family, and now they can start maybe finding ways to stay quiet and hide evidence, and maybe get rid of the trophies or whatever it is that they have, stuff like that. But let's keep going here. I don't want to keep mumbling on. This one here is basically they're going to discuss how the FBI is beginning to track animal abuse because of their knowledge of what it leads to. So let's take a listen.
Opening number right here, 65% of the people police arrested for crimes against animals had also been arrested for harming people. That's according to a study done by the Chicago Police Department. The Now's Tara Hall has the story on how abusers often harm both pets and people, and a warning: the video you're about to see may be disturbing to some.
People who hurt animals are more likely to escalate their abuse to humans. That's why local law enforcement agencies are teaming up with the FBI to better track cases of animal abuse. It's a video that's been viewed nearly 5 million times. A puppy so badly abused by someone that
that poor dog. He's so freaked out by being petted, and he's so scared to bite. Like, you can see that he's so afraid of the hand, but he's also so afraid to protect himself.
he screams in fear when rescuers try to pet him. While the video emerged out of Romania, cases of severe animal abuse and neglect happen every single day in Kansas City.
They're left outside, they're skin and bones, they're emaciated. We don't know if we can bring them back. Or a dog that was beat and it comes in with open wounds.
That's why the Great Plains SPCA and animal welfare organizations in Kansas, Missouri, and across the nation are applauding a new initiative that allows police and sheriff's departments to report cases of animal abuse directly to the FBI's National Incident-Based Reporting System, the same system that tracks violent crimes like rape and murder.
Those who engage in animal abuse are going to be more likely to commit violent crimes against humans.
I think with the FBI now collecting data on these crimes, it's going to help us a lot better to understand them and deal with them.
While the new method of reporting went into effect January 1st, most of the law enforcement agencies I spoke to say they know little to nothing about it. That's something the National Sheriff's Association is working to correct.
It'll take several years for this data to really become useful, and as the FBI improves on the NIRS reporting and that more law enforcement become involved in the NIRS reporting, that data will become very important.
For not just pets in harm's way, but also people. These changes in reporting do not make cases of animal abuse felonies. Instead, what they do is they help law enforcement better track them so they have better tools to prevent cruelty to both animals and people. In Kansas City, I'm Tara Hall for the Now KC.
Yeah, that one was a little hard to watch. That's the worst one. I didn't give a warning because the video they had a great warning there. But that's the worst of the worst there. So yeah, they're saying it's going to take a few years for it to start to really show the data that's going to be of any use. But I mean, you got to start somewhere, and then hopefully that'll start preventing a lot of these crimes. Like, I don't know, maybe if you're a teenager and you get arrested for torturing animals, maybe you should instantly have your DNA put into like some sort of database. You know what I mean? Because they act like it's a fact. They talk about this as if it's a fact. If you hurt animals as a young person, they're saying it's a fact that later on you will, if you hurt animals as a child, you'll go on and hurt people later on in life in different ways. They just speak about it so matter of fact, like it's an absolute. It's kind of scary. So any of you Delphi people out there, if you're watching, if you know anybody between, around 2014, early 2017, a friend, a family member, a hunting buddy, just hurting animals and killing small animals indiscriminately, or talking about it, or showing some type of interest in it, that might be a clue that this person could be involved. So it's just something to watch out for. Yep. Curly says anyone that hurts animals needs to be monitored and observed. I agree with that, because it sounds like the FBI is pretty convinced if you're hurting animals as a young person, you're just going to grow to become even more dangerous. It's a prerequisite. Okay, now this next little video is actually, see if I can pull up the face. So this is a friend of Gary F. Post, the Zodiac killer. And he basically explains how he was his hunting buddy and that he would kill indiscriminately. So I thought it was important that we share that. I think that will help provide us some insight into who we're looking for. So that's him, Gary Post, who was recently, he's deceased now, but he was found to be the Zodiac killer. And this is his friend.
Was through a friend, and he said he could help me with a court case I had in Sonora, which was just a minor traffic violation, but he never liked to let any of the police win, no matter what the cost. So he showed me how to beat the case, and I surely did. And that started next year. I was backpacking with him, and we did it for 20 years after that. Well, I guess what first brought his violent side to my attention was watching him kill animals. He would kill them indiscriminately, and he really enjoyed getting in there and getting dirty. And it was just a little chilling for me, because I usually only eat what I kill. I've seen him kill bears, deer, otter, ferrets, marmots, just anything that lived. He liked to shoot them, watch them fall down, and he liked to mess with the carcasses when he was done.
What kind of things did he do with the carcasses?
He just got bloody. He had a great side. He just didn't have a conscience. He could kill indiscriminately, and
yep. Confirmed.
It's like one of those letters. I think they called him the most dangerous animal, and I mean, he's pretty much proven that over the years. He couldn't even stop after he moved up here. He still had to continue to kill, just to, even if it was.
The Zodiac case has been solved. Are you saying that they have the wrong person?
Small animals just to make himself feel better. And of course, he did end up killing other people, but we can go into that later.
Interesting. Man, we might have to do a little show on the Zodiac. I need to look into that a little bit further. Oh, actually, this one doesn't show anything bad, but it's a really disgusting story. So viewer discretion advised on this one as well. It's only audio. It's an article I found yesterday.
Were arrested for animal cruelty after videos of them mercilessly killing rabbits showed up on Snapchat. According to the Catoosa County Sheriff's Department, Matthew Allen Edmondson, 18, of Spring Meadows Drive in Ringgold, was arrested July 22 on charges of aggravated cruelty to animals and criminal conspiracy to commit a crime. He was released on bond 2 days later on July 24. The identity of the second teen who was arrested on the same charges hasn't been released publicly because he's a juvenile under 16 years of age. The investigation began around 8:15 p.m. on July 11th when a woman in Rossville called the sheriff's department claiming her daughter had witnessed Snapchat videos of 2 teens torturing and killing rabbits live on the social media site. According to witnesses, the boys were allegedly...
Apparently there is a sexual fetish where women basically come on film and they crush small animals, and men pay for that. And this is what led me to our final story of the night, which is actually out of Kokomo. And we're going to spend some time on that one because I think it's very interesting, and I think it's going to help us provide some insight and maybe even more. We might be much more closer than I think here, but we'll I'll see what you guys think about it. We'll talk about it.
laughing as they were cutting a live rabbit's throat, stomping the head of a live rabbit, and taking a ball bat and hitting a rabbit, reports show. According to Deputy Elliot Welch, the boys also demanded money in the videos. The suspects told the girl that they would continue to kill the rabbits unless people bought them for $15 each, Welch said.
This guy right here, Gary Post. I think it happened actually earlier this year where they announced it. It was very recent, maybe mid last year.
A male friend of the woman who notified police contacted the teens and tried to set up a meet to buy the rabbits, with deputies waiting to confront them, but the suspects didn't show up for the meet at the Food Lion in Ringgold. An hour or so before the incident, another lady attempted to file a similar complaint in Ringgold. Deputies met with the concerned resident at Ringgold City Hall after she claimed to have seen the same videos on Snapchat involving 2 boys killing rabbits. Detectives were able to determine that videos of the boys committing the acts appeared on Snapchat from around 4 p.m. to about 6:40 p.m. that day. Ultimately, on July 21st, Corporal Jake Hollis, Detective Jason Sullivan, and Deputy Brittany Gilliland were able to serve warrants on the 2 boys at the younger boy's residence. Edmondson was arrested and taken to the Catoosa County Jail, while the other boy was taken into custody to a juvenile detention in Dalton, Georgia. At the residence, detectives found 11 more rabbits alive in cages, reports show. The case and charges were explained to the younger boy's mother, and she agreed to turn the animals over to Catoosa County Animal Control. According to Hollis, Catoosa County Animal Control is expected to turn the rabbits over to the Georgia Department of Agriculture, plan to then place them with a rabbit rescue team out of Cartersville, Georgia.
Next article.
Okay, so that guy and his buddy, they went on Snapchat. Okay, they went on Snapchat and they made a video of torturing rabbits. And then they posted a link where people could send them money. And they said, if you don't send money or purchase these rabbits from us, we're gonna kill more, or something along those lines. And we're talking teenagers here. So when you start saying all these theories are conspiracy theories, I mean, look at some of these reports. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, this is the next one. They're trying to find a potential animal serial killer, and it's terrorizing this neighborhood. And they're fearful that whoever's committing these crimes will eventually move to human targets.
Plot to poison pets. ABC Action News reporter Adam Weiner is live in North St. Petersburg tonight, where residents say there's a serial animal killer targeting their dogs. Adam?
So shocking. Two pet owners believe that somebody took some wet pet food, contaminated it with some over-the-counter medicine, and from this alley threw this contaminated pet food into their backyards, poisoning their dogs.
The most lovable dog in the world.
Annabelle was a perfectly healthy 5-year-old mixed pit bull terrier, but she died March 14th from kidney failure.
She got worse over the weekend. She went to the vet on the Monday, and on Wednesday we had to put her down.
Rob McCann believes his beloved dog was poisoned. His vet says likely just with ibuprofen.
Grunge Truck asks, do you think it's possible Tony did this without his son knowing? Yes. I think it's possible he did it without anybody knowing. And he may have been stalking prior to that.
Toxic to dogs.
I went and looked in the backyard. There was a brown paper.
I think Keegan was just a catfish, too afraid to do anything, stuck in his shell. And then you got his father, who I think didn't have any self-control. You know, at least Keegan was like, that's what I am. According to his transcripts, it sounds like that's what I was. I just, I was lonely and I was good at catfishing, but I would never meet them. So I don't know if I believe that or not. I mean, that's what a killer would say, would try to make you think, but I really get that vibe from him, but not Tony. I see him out. He's dealing with like semi-famous people. He seems more social, even though maybe that doesn't fit the profile. Maybe we are looking for somebody more like a Keegan Kline. If we listen to the first case, where they were trying to figure out who killed those 3 dogs, they mentioned that, when they gave the profile, it sounded just like Keegan Kline, somebody who stays to themselves, somebody who, if they were to do this, nobody would notice any changes in their behavior. Stuff like that.
Bag with wet dog food, and they put some kind of poison in it.
Shockingly, this is the second time Annabelle has been poisoned, says McCann. The first time back in 2016. Both times a threatening note left on his door. The first note read, "Shut your dog up or we will." The last time, you can see it reads in part, "Your dog has barked non-stop. Shut him up."
Not a barker. Only time she barks is if somebody's going up and down the alley. It broke my heart. I knew instantly. I mean, I just don't know what to say. People are sick.
A woman who lives just a couple houses down from McCann tells her neighbors that just last week her beloved 8-year-old golden retriever died in exactly the same way. And last year, neighbors say someone else on this block found their pet cat hanged. It has others here on 44th Avenue Northeast fearful for their pets.
Anybody that's got video of our neighborhood, anybody that's got cameras that could help us out would be great.
I ended up talking just a few minutes ago to the man whose cat was hanged. He lives just a block this way. St. Pete police were here out at the scene after we came out here doing further investigating. They tell me another woman just a block away was also receiving threatening notes in the past month. St. Pete police now believe that this does appear to be a developing trend that they are taking a closer look at. For now, live here in Northeast St. Pete, I'm Adam Weiner, ABC Action News.
That's so sad. And what's crazy is he said his dog only barks when somebody's walking in the back of the alley. So immediately my mind said, maybe there's somebody that wants to go back there for nefarious reasons, and that dog is causing them issues. Maybe he's going back there and he's spying on somebody, or um, doing something really inappropriate, and he just can't get it done with that damn dog barking. That's the first thing that popped in my head. Yep. Yeah, I think the person who did it lives close by, and I think for some reason, I feel like he wants to spy on somebody. He wants to sneak in somebody's backyard. He wants to do some spying, but these dogs won't allow it. So if I were them, I would have staked out that place even after. I don't know if he wants to spy, or he just needs to use that. Maybe needs to get home quietly. Maybe it's a young teenager who needs sneaking out at night. Who knows? Getting busted by his parents every time. Always looking for the motivation behind these crazy crimes. Okay, this next one that we're going to kind of look into is how they're going to prosecute a case of animal cruelty, and it kind of talks a little bit about how it's a gateway crime, and why it's important that they begin to start prosecuting this stuff as felonies, and they just basically they need a program.
I grew up in the city of Albany. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a police officer, serve the community which I grew up in. I think it's important for someone to help their city by when they get older, maybe become a police officer, firefighter. You got to give back to the community, and I think that's a great way to do it, is to give your service. I've been a detective in my unit for the last 7 years. Within the unit, it covers many types of crimes, one being animal cruelty investigations. It can be very rewarding, but people do crazy things on a weekly basis. I say to myself, I've seen everything. I've seen everything 15, 20 times.
That also made me think of Holman, the lead investigator. He says, I've never seen anything like the Delphi case. And, he's from, the tip of the spear out there. That's state police right there. He says, I've never seen anything like the Delphi case. So to me, that tells me that it was extremely gruesome. So now we got to ask ourselves, if this is a young person, the sophistication, who always tells us about the sophistication? I think that's Douglas, John Douglas. He's trying to figure out the age according to sophistication of the crime. And in regards to Delphi, he said, well, he wishes he knew the details, because then he could determine the sophistication. But he's a trained professional. Of course, he wants to. That doesn't mean that we should have that information, So I do, I draw the line there.
911, what's your emergency? Yeah, actually, I'm calling. My neighbor just came home from work and he was outside barefoot and he looks very confused. He's cut up. He's cut up? Yeah, his hands were cut. His arms were like he was cut up. Okay, we'll send somebody over.
So on December 21st, the Albany Police Department received a couple calls pertaining to a male. He had blood on his arms and hands.
The defendant was crawling around outside with his shoes off, just acting very strange. And she had noticed that his cat carrier had been placed out into the garbage.
We received another call for a deceased cat found in the rear yard of the location. Patrol officers responded.
And then proceeded to go talk to the defendant. He said that they had been having a troubled relationship and in kind of jest said, yeah, I killed my cat.
Surprisingly, people say things they did when knowing it may get them in trouble.
When asked about the scratches on his arm, he said that he had fallen off of his bicycle.
One witness said that she heard what appeared to be a struggle in his apartment. The cat was obviously in distress with a screeching noise.
So all of these put together were pretty indicative that he was the one that committed the crime. The police arrested him at the scene, and then the animal control officer took the cat and placed him into evidence.
The most important thing that I think has evolved over the years is certainly the seriousness that first responders are now treating these cases with. Because before it would be, okay, there's a dog or a cat or an animal that's dead, on the side of the road or in someone's backyard, and it was easily dismissed. Now, they're arriving at a crime scene and they're treating these scenes as crime scenes, because
Because they know. They're treating it like a crime scene because they know that they're seeing into the future. They're saying, or they're basically kind of seeing into the past, really. They're seeing the makings of a violent offender.
going to hold someone accountable.
We know animal cruelty is a gateway crime to other crimes.
There is good evidence from studies that people who are cruel to animals are much more likely to go on and do the same thing to people. And this has been statistically proven by the FBI.
If you look at just about every single mass murderer, it starts out with harming a vulnerable, little animal. And if you're prosecuting that individual for this crime, you're drawing attention to that individual and possibly preventing future crimes from happening.
You cannot prosecute a person solely on their admission alone. You must have corroboration. And
See, and that's the part I don't understand. They're always talking about false confessions and stuff like that. It's not like somebody will come forward and confess to a crime and then they're still not going to look into it. They're going to be like, okay, we got our guy. Let's lock him up. He admitted to it. They're still going to do the investigation using his testimony as, key information. They're not just going to accept it blindly and close the books.
For someone to help their city, animal cruelty is a gateway crime to other crimes.
There is good evidence from studies that people who are cruel to animals are much more likely to go on and do the same thing to people. And this has been statistically proven by the FBI.
If you look at just about every single mass murderer, it starts out with harming a vulnerable, little animal. And if you're prosecuting that individual for this crime, you're drawing attention to that individual and possibly preventing future crimes from happening.
you cannot prosecute a person solely on their admission alone. You must have corroboration. And we could only get that from the Cornell Diagnostic Center. The cat went to Cornell, where a necropsy was done by Dr. Elizabeth Buckles.
At Cornell, at the vet school, we have an obligation to do service for the state of New York, and that includes support for the legal system. Our job is to be objective and use our skills as pathologists, as veterinarians, to say, this is what we think happened. We did a thorough examination of the limbs, of the skin, of the skull, palpated all of the bones to make sure there were no other fractures. We looked for signs of other traumas. If there had been a long-term illness, we look at the tissue underneath the microscope to make sure there isn't something so subtle that we missed it. And then we brought our attention to the wound, which was so obvious.
Once I received the report from Dr. Buckles from Cornell, she was able to tell us definitively there was no natural cause for his death. This was a man-made wound of some sort. We relied heavily on the report, and a grand jury voted to charge the defendant with aggravated animal cruelty. Once he had been arrested,
now that they're taking it seriously when they see these cases, they're really looking into them. They're treating them like a real, almost like a child, because they know that that's what's coming. So they're basically using their brains, and they're being preventative. They're being proactive and not reactive, basically.
and negotiations were occurring with his attorney. Other theories started to be presented by them, that he loved his cat, he wouldn't have hurt his cat, he doesn't know what happened to the cat, and that the cat's body was probably scavenged by some animal.
I work with wildlife, so I see a lot of scavenging. The wound was so symmetrical and so targeted, and not in an area that a scavenger would have started with.
That just kind of blew their whole theory out of the water.
You have people that have credibility, and they take the stand. And then you start to see the lights being turned on in the minds of the jurors. They're like, oh, okay, wow, that really did happen, and that was really, really bad. It makes the case.
I feel much more comfortable when I'm dealing with an investigation where you have medical, concrete evidence that can't be disputed as far as what happened to a particular person or animal. And then you put that with all your other evidence, and that's when I think you have a favorable outcome when it goes to trial.
The jury found the defendant guilty, and he was sentenced to the maximum, which is...
Do we have any information on that with the Tony Klein stuff about dog abuse? Where are you guys getting that information at? I don't think I've ever seen that. Where's that coming from?
2 years. His neighbors are safe, and it's one less person that we have to be concerned about doing other things to people and other animals.
I think it satisfies the community to let them know that this person is not out there causing harm to anyone or any pet. It wouldn't be possible if we didn't have that collective effort.
I was glad that I was able to present truthfully what I saw, and people were able to use that to do their job.
Over the years, I can say emphatically, we would not be able to make some of the most complicated cases. We wouldn't have been able to support them. We would not have been able to even present them had it not been for the forensic work that was being done by our friends over at Cornell. In New York State, you're very fortunate to have a university that has this kind of resource. Their commitment to the community is beyond educating the masses. Their commitment to the community is also public safety and public health.
We want everyone to be safe, whether it's an animal or a person.
That was a really great report. That comes out of Cornell University. Voice modulation. I heard there's voice modulation. Analyst set says, if a young person, for instance, a schoolmate of Libby, did the crime, he didn't have a problem killing 2 girls at once. In my opinion, the killer has had previous experience hurting or killing. Yep. I agree. Or was under the influence, or was off their medication. They just snapped. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would like to look more into that. Yeah, I know that that's a fact. The dog was taken, I don't know if it was momentarily or just to secure it. You know, you don't want a pit bull running around. Up, hunker down. Anti-am. Later. right, looks like we're caught up on the chat here. So while I was looking into this topic here, I ran into somebody by the name of Crystal Sharika Scott. She's out of Kokomo. And she was creating what is known as crush videos. They're made for people's sexual pleasure and I believe sold, I don't know, on the dark web. But this is an extremely interesting case and it definitely has my attention at the moment. Let's take a look.
Tonight, a Kokomo woman faces federal charges accused of extreme animal abuse. We warn you, some of this information is graphic. The FBI says 19-year-old Crystal Scott is accused of making and distributing animal crush videos. Those are videos that show the extreme mutilation, torture, and killing of animals. The FBI raided a home in the 2000 block of South 300 West in Kokomo Tuesday. This after the FBI says an investigation found that Scott had allegedly been posting images and videos showing her graphically killing dogs and cats by hanging, skinning, and other means. During the search, the FBI says agents recovered multiple animal parts and skulls that were believed to be from dogs and cats. Scott could face up to 7 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a maximum fine of $250,000.
Wow. Good old Kokomo. Great place to get your crush videos, apparently. And possibly catfished. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Let's entertain this. I know we're not supposed to do this type of shit, but I thought that was interesting. No? Let's run that back. What'd they say? With the help of internet sleuths, they found this person. Good job, team. Good job. Yeah, and I think she was just recently released from a mental institution just before this happened, actually. Hey, Mandy. Just evil. I mean, not only was she hurting animals, she was like filming it and stuff. Like, it's almost worse than like how serial killers begin. 'Cause at least they like kill the animals and they're doing it for their own like weird whatever it is that they're trying to feed, you know, that's psychotic part of their brain. But she was not only doing that, but she was sharing it with people and then receiving payment. It sounds a lot like our profile. You know, somebody who could gain the trust of the girls. Oh, I'm a girl, you know. But come to find out she was, you know, decapitating dogs and slicing dogs. Sharp weapon. That's what we're looking for. I mean, I don't think it's too far-fetched. I have another one on her, and we're going to end it on that. This is basically, they don't give any credit to the internet sleuths on this one, but they do show the images that they found and how they were able to compare it. It's going to be a tattoo, I believe, on the left hand.
Being involved with animal cruelty. New tonight, an arrest linked to videos showing horrific animal abuse. We have more on a story you likely saw first this afternoon on idahonews.com. New tonight, CBS 2's Erica Lee talks to the Idaho Humane Society about how the suspect was tracked down.
The Humane Society contacted the Boise Police Department, who reached out to the FBI for a multi-state investigation. These are some of the screen grabs, the FBI says, that show the suspect's tattoos. Many assumed they were of a man, but the FBI announced she is a 19-year-old woman named Crystal Cherica Scott from the Midwest.
About end of June, we realized that the FBI had honed in on a suspect that was in Indiana. So we had learned that they were not actually local. This was just something that they were doing to throw the police and prosecutors off of their case.
The FBI tracked her down and yesterday closed in on her property, seizing evidence and arresting her.
This was not her first time being involved with animal cruelty. She has killed before, and she was just released recently from a mental institution. So she's definitely going to go back, and they're going to assess her for charges. I'm not sure what's going to come after this.
Erica Lee, CBS 2 News.
Yeah, so it's funny. All I was doing was listening to the professionals, trying to track down information, and then bam, found this chick. I mean, if anybody fits the profile, and we always ask that whole, is that Ashley Garth question, or could that be a female? There you go. I mean, that girl's scary. Slicing dogs' throats and stuff like that. Why couldn't she do that to a person? Yeah, and if she's not connected, she's definitely providing us insight to what I think we're looking for. But it really is only if you buy into the whole staging and they were trying to maybe videotape or take photos. If you buy into that whole thing, and we kind of gained some insight from the Ron Logan affidavit, by the list of things that they were looking for on his property, a lot of it had to do with ways of holding data, digital data, photography items, film, anything along those lines they were interested in. And I'm wondering if that's because of the staging, and maybe it appeared, or maybe there are items left, who knows, that made it seem like they were taking record or film. If you buy into that, that makes this person even more of a viable suspect. She's using sharp weapons. She matches the young description. She was very internet savvy. You saw all of that stuff on there. She had all of these different channels, email addresses, profiles. And she was already actively doing it online and selling the material. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to do a follow-up stream on this person. So I think I'm going to spend some time today looking into it. And if anybody wants to follow up or send me information or collaborate on that, whatever, if you're as interested in it as I am, I found it extremely interesting. But what do I know? All right, guys. I think that's going to wrap it up. If you have anything to follow up on today's live stream, shoot me an email. My email address is in the description. Let me know what you think. And also, let me go ahead and close this out as well. I'm going to end this poll real quick. And then I missed it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So 55% voted 18 to 40, which would be the wise choice. 30 to 60, that was 31%. And then I also voted 14 to 25, and we were only at 12%. And time will tell. Yeah, we're definitely going to do a follow-up on this. We'll look more into the Zodiac, and we'll probably save that one for members. We'll see if that's something you guys want to do. Keep an eye out on the community page, and have a great night. I'll see you soon. Take care.